Hey, everybody, and welcome to Pro Tour Talk with Steve Dodge. I'm Steve Dodge. Today is, it's April. Today is April 11th, 2018. We just finished up the Jonesboro Open. And tonight on the show, we will have Eric Oakley will join us a little bit later. He's going to tell us some stories from the road, and he and I are going to have a discussion about his career, where it's been and where it's headed. And then we'll bring in Matt Krueger, and the three of us are going to have a discussion about par and what we should think about, how we should think about par in disc golf, and maybe the three of us can come to some consensus on where par should head in an ideal disc golf world and how we should all think about par. And then we'll say goodbye to Eric, and I'll close out the show with Matt, and we'll tell some fun stories about life in the Cheesecake Factory. So with that, let's head into tonight's show. Upcoming topics in the future. Before we head into tonight's show, upcoming topics for the future, we're going to talk about weather, how weather should be handled on the Pro Tour. We're going to talk about women's tees and the growth of the women's game. We're going to talk about partnership opportunities that people have with the Pro Tour. And then basically we have a 6-week break. We're going to talk about how we're going to fill that 6-week break and keep you guys entertained and engaged in pro disc golf. So speaking of pro disc golf, if you want to go online and buy a hat, these are pretty sweet. Miles calls them dad hats. I don't know why. Ice cream of the day is Vice Cream Minted. These guys make a mean ice cream, and I'm going to see if I can eat a pint of ice cream in an hour. So anyway, the JBO, the Jonesboro Open, presented by Pro Discus. First of all, it was great to actually meet Kai, who runs Pro Discus, a fantastic guy who in the night golf round that we played was gracious enough to actually let me beat him. Thank you, Kai. I genuinely appreciate that. It was kind of funny. He tested out the discs, and then right as soon as we started, we switched out his disc. So he turns out he had a different disc than he thought he had, which might have cost him a stroke, and I beat him by a stroke. It's hard to eat ice cream and talk. So Ricky Wysocki wins the Jonesboro Open. He wins by 4, pulling away in the last round. Ironically, he pulled away from Eric, one of the competitors who was very close with 5 or 6 holes to go. Paige Pierce wins by 10 on the women's side. They are both repeat champions. The Jonesboro Open has happened twice, and those two people have won it both times. Additionally, they both lead tour points. Paige Pierce is undefeated in the Pro Tour so far this year, 3 for 3. And Ricky, this was his first win on the tour, but with 2 other solid finishes, this actually puts him in the lead in tour points. And Paul McBeth, interestingly enough, is in second. In a year when people have stated many, many times on many, many podcasts that Ricky Wysocki and Paul McBeth are having off years, 3 events into the season, they find themselves in first and second. So with an off year like that, who needs on years? So we've got the Pro Tour will be picking up in San Francisco in 6 weeks, and then we'll head over to Utah, then D-Glow, and then Idlewild, and then Ledgestone, and then finish up at the MVP Open. 2 weeks later is Pro Worlds, which is probably where we'll finish our 2019 season. And then in October, just like last year, we'll head on down to Jacksonville for the Tour Championships the week after the National Tour conclusion, which is the Hall of Fame Classic. So the next thing to discuss real quick, we had 7 holes with different tees. Oh, yeah, women's tees. So at Jonesboro, we had 7 holes with different tees. There were 4 holes that had different pars. I don't want to include those in the comparison because I want to look at how the women played the hole, and just adding 1 stroke to par doesn't really change how you play a hole. So for the sake of this argument or this discussion about tees, I'm going to leave those 4 out of it. We had 7 holes with different tees. We had 7 holes with the same tees. In reviewing the Circle 2 and regulation stat, it's interesting that Matt's here because we can have a conversation. I don't think we've discussed this actually firmly, but in my opinion, the target of Circle 2 and regulation should be somewhere around 40%. And then on holes where MPO and FPO played from the same tees, and looking at the analysis on those 7 holes, it looks to me like 5 of those holes should actually have longer MPO tees. The men need longer tees on 5 of those 7 holes. And on 2 of those holes, actually, the women need shorter tees. So it was interesting because I've been beating this drum that says we need women's tees. And in fact, on 5 of the holes that we didn't change, where they had the same tees, looking at the numbers, it looks to me like we actually need men's tees instead. We already have women's tees, and we just need to make men's tees because those holes were actually playing a little too easy for the men. So I guess however the expression goes, the potato cuts both ways. And of those holes, hole 7 is actually the poster child of those. MPO reached circle 2 80% of the time on hole 7 at Jonesboro. Those guys need a longer tee, or they need to move the basket. 80% is too high of a number, in my opinion. And on the women's side, from the same tee, the women reach circle 2 8% of the time. So the men 80%, the women 8%. Interestingly enough, that tee is in the exact wrong spot for both divisions. For the women, we should probably bump it up 20 to 50 feet. And for the men, we should probably bump it back 50 to 100 feet. And in that way, we'll make a good challenging hole for both divisions. So that hole 7 is sort of the poster child. The men and the women maybe both need different tees on that one. We'll talk with Brad. We'll make some analysis, and we'll do what makes sense. But so anyway, in beating the women's tee drum, maybe I should just be beating the tees need to make sense for both divisions drum. And then closing this conversation out on the holes that had different tees, where we did have men's tees and women's tees, women reached circle 2 44% of the time, which is right in range of what my target would be. And men reached circle 2 40% of the time. So perfect. That's that was, in my opinion, dialed in very well. There was one hole for the men and one hole for the women. Both the men and the women had one hole that was too easy and one hole that was too hard. So, and actually, I'm not sure it was too hard. I'm talking about hole 5. If you remember hole 5, that you actually have to try to clear the OB to reach the green. And most people decided not to take that risky shot. We potentially need to either make the OB a little closer so that there's more of a reward if you make it, or maybe move the tees forward, or something needs to adjust there to encourage the players to go for that green more often. So because most people did not go for the green, they just played safe and then went up and down for the easy 3. As a spectator, I want to see people going for it. I want to encourage. I'd love to encourage about half the field to go for it. I don't know what that distance is, but I suspect Brad Peets will find out over the next 3 or 4 years. And then hole 16 was too easy for both the men and the women. Maybe we need to build an island green on that hole or something. But, oh no, I'm sorry. I read that wrong. Hole 15 was too easy. Hole 16 was a par 5 for the men, but that should clearly be a par 4. The hole was great. It's a fantastic hole, but that calling a par 5 is giving 130 people birdies on that. Birdies are better on that out of, I don't even know the number. Matt can probably tell me the number, the percentage. Okay, last thing we're going to do before we call in Eric, the Jonesboro Open viewer stats. Holy bajolies, we're doing pretty good. So last year, we had less than 20,000 people watch the live stream over all 3 days, inclusive. This year, we had more than 80,000 people watch the live streams. That's over 400% growth. If we could do that again, good golly, we're on to something right there. 320,000 people. That's very amazing. So thank you, everybody that watched. The numbers matter, and maybe you appreciate what it is that we're doing and the players that are playing, and we're actually building something pretty significant here. That was really fun to watch and to investigate that number, less than 20,000 to more than 80,000. 80% of the people are from North America. That includes Canada. 11% are from Scandinavia. And then we've got about 1% coming from the UK, Germany, and Estonia. 1% is coming from each of those places. So I'll combine them to 3%. Average watch time. Who's bored from numbers? Raise your hand if you're bored of numbers. All right, nobody yet. Nobody. I did not see anybody raise their hand. Average watch time. Last year, 32 minutes was our average watch time over the course of the whole season. My goal this year was 40 minutes. We had not yet done it until Jonesboro. Jonesboro last year, 31-minute average watch time. That means people would sit down and watch professional disc golf for 31 minutes uninterrupted each time we had a broadcast. Jonesboro, that number was raised to 41 minutes. 10 minutes more, 33% growth. 33% growth, tremendous numbers. I think Johnny and Terry are getting things down. I think people liked the commentary from the booth. I think we got a lot of things working, and we're going to keep trying new things, and we're going to keep making the broadcast better. But thank you very much for tuning in and staying tuned in. In America, the average watch time was 41 minutes, 18 seconds. In countries that had 10 or more viewers, namely Belgium, the average was over an hour. And in countries that had one or more viewer, and if you are this viewer, I want to know who you are. In Egypt, we had one viewer in Egypt, and they watched over 3 hours of our broadcast. Thank you very much. The Egypt numbers are tremendous. So if you're in a country that does not watch much disc golf, you have an opportunity to be mentioned in our next broadcast. Just watch the entire thing. So thank you, Egypt, bringing our numbers up. Total viewer minutes last year, 800,000 viewer minutes. Those are the kind of things that partners care about, the people, corporations, people who want to know that their message is being seen. 800,000 viewer minutes. That's a lot of viewer minutes. This year, over 3 million. Well done. Thank you again, everybody. The Disc Golf Pro Tour is growing. People are watching. It's very, very exciting. So that's my Jonesboro Open recap. Ricky won, Paige won, everybody watched, and here we go. So with that, after the break, we're going to come to Eric. We're going to bring in Eric McCabe. We're going to talk about Eric McCabe's, not Eric McCabe, Eric Oakley. That's actually a funny point because I'm pretty old. I'll be 50 in about 3 weeks. And when I did a search on Eric Oakley, I typed in Google, I typed PDGA Eric. And holy bajolies, Eric Oakley came out on top of Eric McCabe in Google. Like, that's a more common search. Although if you're as old as I am and you're forgetful, you just say Eric McCabe sometimes. So my apologies to Eric Oakley. We'll bring you in just a second. And we'll talk about Eric's career, how he did at Jonesboro, where he's headed in the future, and then we'll bring Matt in and we'll talk about par. So with that, here we go. Eric, can you unmute yourself and welcome yourself to the podcast?
What's up, Steve?
Hi there, Eric. It's great to see you. Happy days. How's life in the trailer?
Loving it. It's good. We're contemplating ripping out what I'm sitting on because we want a little more space, but always it's like a house. You know, you see things and you want to change it. So we'll be doing that here soon.
So, Eric, I wanted to start our conversation here. Here's where I wanted to start our conversation. And I wrote up a little thing so I don't mess this up.
All right.
As I'm sure you know, many people were very excited to see you challenge for the lead at Jonesboro. With 4 or 5 holes to go, you were, depending on what hole you were on, you were either tied for the lead, in the lead, or one behind the lead. Mm-hmm. Ricky obviously had some holes in hand, but as far as to par goes, you were right there. And if you had birdied hole 14, we were ready to pull a camera off the live coverage and pull it over to you.
Yeah.
Instead, you threw your drive out of bounds. And I don't know if you know, but I was down there watching that drive. I'm sorry to have seen that, but I did. But you played a fantastic tournament. Yes, thank you. Last year at GMC, you you shot the second hottest. You were one shot off the hot round in the first round, and you're on the lead card after round one. This week at the Jonesboro Open, presented by Pro Discus, you're tied for the lead with 5 holes to go, and you finish with you're finishing third place, a very good finish. There's 101 people who would have been happier with that finish versus what they did finish. But then I said, okay, so who is Eric Oakley? And I looked at your PDGA stats. You have 3 PDGA wins. Does that sound correct?
Yes, it is. It is.
One is a 3-round A tier, one is a 2-round B tier, and one is a 1-round C tier. In which,
got my ABC.
Yeah, you got your ABCs. You earned $75 in that C tier for 42 throws. So that's about $1.80 a throw. And you beat Paul Ulibarri by a stroke. He earned about $1 a throw. So you only have 3 wins. Your PDGA rating is 1,006. You're just a mere 40 points behind Ricky and Paul. The question I have for you, are you one of our Sports Elite players?
I definitely feel I have the ability to be. I've been working hard in every aspect of the game, as far as my practice, my physical ability, and what was the big determining factor of why I did so well this weekend was my mental game. I had a really good mantra. I talked with a good friend of mine, Seth Muncie, and sponsored of Disc Golf Strong. He and I had a lot of really good conversations about visualization, and that was the key to my success this weekend. I had a mantra before I stepped up to every single putt, and it was, you can make this putt. Make this putt. You got it. And I kept saying that, and I missed. It says I missed 2 putts inside the circle, but I don't remember missing. I only remember missing 1. So it was that positivity and that visualization that really did well for me. And that if I can be firing on all cylinders like I did this past weekend, I feel like I proved that I can be up there with some of the Sports Elite for sure.
Well, you surprised me there, Eric, because I expected you to say, I hope to be someday. And you kind of did. And I was going to say that you are already.
Yeah,
so
thank you. I mean, you have to, when you're in these positions as professionals, we have to believe we're capable and we should be there. And that was another thing I kept saying. It was like, you know what? You're supposed to be here. You're supposed to be here. You've earned it. Now go get it. And that was, if I ever started feeling doubt, it was little things. And I still feel like I try and be very humble about things, because I'm not, oh, I'm so good, bro. Like I know I'm capable of it. And, there are definitely weekends where I'm capable of 20th place and, more closer to what my actual rating is. Oh my God, our cat is about to fall. Sorry. Yeah, and it's being realistic, but also realistic in the hard work does pay off. One thing that my dad told me when I was very young is hard work works. So I'm gonna keep to that.
He did you a favor in instilling that in you, and I'll go ahead and admit, when I've got 2 beautiful daughters, and when they were born, I wanted to instill confidence in them, and I wanted to always tell them, you are smart, and you are beautiful, and those were the things that I wanted to instill in them. And they got to be about 4 or 5, and I read a book that reminded me, actually, the thing that matters the most is persistence and working hard and applying yourself. It's really easy to be smart, and it's a lot harder to be smart and work hard. So your dad did you a big favor there.
Thank you.
Thank him. But yes. So do you remember how you did in the Pro Tour season in 2016?
Yeah, I think I played 3 of 5 events.
Yep.
I was less than a point out of making the finals, I think is what it was.
Yeah, you finished in 51st, and 48 made the finals.
Yeah, it was really close. I remember that. And I know that I decided not to play. Well, I didn't that was in the transition from Discmania to dynamic discs and transitioning to traveling with Tina, which was the best move I could have made. Um, and uh, I ended up was signed up for Ledgestone that year, but didn't play because I ended up
Oh,
couldn't make it. So then I would have played a fourth one, which I think would have probably
absolutely.
for sure.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I would have done it. Uh,
Yeah,
your your best finish in 2016 was at the Silver Cup. You got
yeah,
27th.
yeah.
Your average earnings at PDGA events was $175 per event.
He's about right.
In 2017, you increased that to $250 average.
Not bad. I played a lot more too.
And this year, yes, you did. And this year, you're averaging 475.
It's not
So
bad.
it's up, up,
Bad at
up.
all.
And I'm including every event. I'm including the little C tiers where the most you can earn is $75. So,
Yeah, exactly.
um,
No, you got to do them all if you're gonna do some, you know.
uh, Paul Macbeth doesn't say that.
You have to. I mean, if we're gonna go out and play a PDGA sanctioned round and it's gonna be rated and we're gonna get paid for it, it should count. It's good.
Yeah.
It
Oh
counts.
no, absolutely. But you don't. You can pick and choose what events you play.
Yes, that is true. That is true.
But you've segued very well into the next concept here, which is you're on the road, living in the RV,
Yeah.
perhaps living the dream with a beautiful, intelligent woman that applies herself and works hard, and you guys are making a success of it.
Mm-hmm.
You're not doing it 100% by winnings.
Yeah.
You're working. How are you doing this, and how do you decide where to go?
So going to disc golf areas that one, the popular areas are always a spot to hit as we travel because you know you're going to have a good crowd. But what we've noticed going and setting up and running an event, bag of tricks, clinic, whatever it may be, in a smaller event, a more deprived place from disc golf, has has shown to be really, really, really like beneficial for us because those people are starving
Yeah.
for pros and for people to be there. And it's we've had a lot of success going to those places. So you just got to sprinkle them in. Sometimes you'll go to a place and have 10 people and you'll make $100. But what you have to understand that those events, what you're doing is it's you know motivating more people to play and motivating more people to invest in disc golf and go and show somebody else disc golf. And so we definitely you know try and always write it off as a win whenever we get to set up and do these things.
You are traveling the country and planting seeds.
Yes, yes.
And with the right amount of water and sunlight, seeds reap results. So in 2016, you played 3 of the 5 Pro Tour events. Your best finish was 27th. In 2018, you've played 3 events so far. Do you know what your worst finish so far is?
17th.
17th. You nailed it. Very good. So, and where I was going with that is you got 17th and then 14th and then 3rd. Those are really impressive numbers.
Yeah.
And you're in the top 8 in tour points.
Saw that. Yeah.
And
pretty cool.
I think let's just extrapolate this out. You finish in the top 8 over the season because the little engine that could says, I think I can. You are 100% one of the elite players in our sport. And that is pretty freaking cool.
Yeah. I mean, to even be there right now is a total pleasure. And I think, you know, like that whole, I'm going to keep working at it. I haven't, you know, getting ready for San Francisco. It'll be a kind of that quick turnaround after Masters Cup.
Yep.
But I know I could do well in Utah, going back home a little bit, which is awesome. And I played pretty well there last year, and just I knew I could clean things up and be amongst it. And Idlewild was an interesting one. I really enjoyed. I shot the same score at Idlewild all 3 rounds, but I did it in 3 completely different ways. It was crazy, and I mean 3 down got me. It was a good result either way.
Mm-hmm.
And then Ledgestone was good, and you know I'm bummed that we're not playing Green Mountain, but because I love being up there. But I think I'm really excited to come to your neck of the woods for the MVP Open. I think that was my first time at Maple Hill last year.
Oh,
So I
wow.
think, yeah, now seeing it and now knowing what I can do and the things that I feel like I'm capable of, I know I have more things to show that course. So I think, I'm setting myself up for uh, success with a good quick start, out the gate here. So it's
You
awesome.
are you are 100% right, and I look forward to seeing what you do the rest of the season. Regarding MVP, I'll say I'm excited about that event in particular. Obviously, I'll get to sleep in my own bed, but additionally, MVPs come in and they want us to bring the. I don't. A lot of the stuff was downtown leading into the event last year. All that stuff's going to be brought back onto the farm, and it's going to be everything's going to be in that one place, and we're going to bring the family back, if you will.
That was one thing that I heard from.
Yeah.
They're like, it was different this year. Like, I hope they bring it back, and everybody kept saying that. You're doing the right thing by listening.
All I can do is try, fail, and change.
Yeah.
And I do it a lot. So, Eric, congratulations on consistently improving your game. And I love the fact that you worked with Seth at, what is it, Disc Golf Power? What is this?
Oh, strong.
Disc Golf Strong.
Yeah.
I met him out at Memorial, seemed like a fantastic guy. And I didn't realize that he's working on the mental side as well.
Mm-hmm.
So
He called Mind Gym. We talked about these things because all he can do, like, he wants to be able to give us all the tools, because I'll do the disc golf side, he'll help with the physical side, and then another side that he can help with is the mental side, and he has a lot of stuff. He had worked with other professional athletes, and we know that it's a lot of it is mental. So it's going to be definitely going to, when I've turned this new leaf and figured things out, I'm ready to kind of continue to apply it. So I got an ace here this weekend to really test it and see if it actually is something that'll stick and carry over.
Well, thank you very much for being one of the happiest, easiest people to root for out on the tour. I know that you have tons of fans who love to come see you when you guys do clinics. They love to buy the whale sacks, and they love to just support you guys and keep you on the tour and let you live the dream. And we get to live vicariously through you as you hold that disc way down low on the ground and pull it fast across your chest. So actually, before we join Matt, can you tell me, I love to ask people just one really fun story. You and Tina are traveling. It could be before Tina, just something really entertaining and fun that you want to share with us and let us know about.
All right. So this is a good one. So the RV we ride around, it was the one we had last year, but it still applies. They have roof vents, and you open them up when you need a little bit of air and everything. They're awesome for what you need them for. The last ones we had were a little sun damaged, so they were a little yellowy. So Tina looked them up online, bought some new ones, took all the pieces off, installed them herself. They look beautiful. They were awesome. And we're at Masters Cup, and on one hole, we're on the I threw a thumber and my disc landed in these bushes, and I couldn't find it. So we drove the RV around, and the bushes were really tall. So we drove the RV around, and we're looking on top of the bush. And I was like, I can't find it. Like, all right, I got a disc that's really similar. I'm going to run back, and I'm going to grab it. I'm going to throw the same shot, so we have at least an idea of where it might be in the bush. And I threw it, came down, broke the roof vent, and I thought Tina, I was like, all right, I gotta find a new touring partner, because she's about to kill me, kick me out of the RV. She was really cool about it. We had a duct tape job for at least a month, and because we tried to get a new piece, and then it was the wrong size, and it was just a big ordeal. And it just was like, just the simple fact that the worst thing that I possibly could have done, oh, I did it. And it happened to be, she just put him in a week before that. It was it was pretty great.
So have you done that trick often, where you throw a disc, you can't find it, and so you say, I'm going to throw another disc in that spot?
Oh, in like a similar distance. Yeah, it's worked in, man, I forgot where it was. Like, I threw a hyzer, and then it crashed into a bush, and we couldn't find it in the bush. It was like, I'm going to throw another hyzer, similar disc, and try and get an idea. And it at least gave us a better idea of where the disc might be. Yeah, was not my proudest moment. What? No, Tina says no, it doesn't work.
It doesn't. I've I've had that thought, but I've never done it because it just seems silly. I threw this disc and lost it, so I'm going to throw a disc just like it and try not
Yeah,
to.
don't do it. Don't. That's all.
Especially if you park your car right next to where it might go.
Yeah, it's not smart one bit, not at all.
Did you
Oh
take
man,
a picture of that cracked vent?
we should have. We did not. We did not. It had. I remember I duct taped because I mean you had to you know seal it off
Of
or
course.
else it water would have leaked in. And I took a Nike bag that we got from an outlet store and duct taped that, and that stayed. And it did. That thing held up pretty well with a pretty sick duct tape job. So, it was funny.
Well, that's a good story, and in no way offers a smooth segue to our next segment. So, and with that, after the break, we're going to talk about par. We're going to bring Matt Krueger in, you, me. We're all going to have a nice little talk, and we're going to solve the par dilemma in disc golf once and for all. And we've got 15 minutes to do it. Are you ready?
I'm all for it.
All right. Let me see if I can unmute Matt. Very good. Matt Krueger from UDisc, are you with us?
I'm here.
Fantastic. It's great to see you, Matt. Thank you very much. And Eric Not McCabe is still with us as well. And I'm going to start this conversation because, well, yeah, the
what I've
other
been called the world.
It's funny because I talk about people who have said that we should call ball golf conventional golf, and I've argued no, we shouldn't, because in 10 to 12 years we're going to be conventional golf, and
Yes.
whichever most people do is conventional. So
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't call you the other anymore because Google says that you're the Eric of disc golf.
That's pretty cool.
So I'd be interested to see if that happens for everybody else or just me because I've been researching you so much.
Maybe. I don't know. Maybe it's Google is pretty smart when it comes to that stuff.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
And they do definitely know what I do. But regarding par, I just wanted to start this conversation. The reason that par keeps coming up in conversations is because our conventional golf, which is not, I shouldn't call it that. I should just say ball golf, traditional golf. When you win a major tournament, our impression is that you win with somewhere around par, maybe a few under par or par, maybe even a few over par. But par is a pretty good indicator of what you're going to shoot. In my research, that's not necessarily the truth, but they don't end with 40 down. They might end with 10 or 12 down, but they're not going crazy low. So that's where the concept of disc golf par is incorrect comes from, in my opinion. And that's just where I want to start the conversation. And I want to hear what you guys think about where par in disc golf is and if there's anything wrong with it right now. And Matt, I'm going to start with you as the numbers guy.
Yeah. So for par, this is something that comes up a lot, being that we're people that make scorecards for disc golf. People are always asking us opinions about par, and people email and say, oh, this should be a par 4, this should be a par 3. And so we think about it a lot. And I think to start the discussion, I think that we have to talk about it in two different places, kind of the amateur side and the professional side. So to me, in amateur disc golf, par is a lot more important because it can do a couple things for you. It can kind of help you based on your ability, figure out, how many throws you should be throwing to kind of play the hole as it's intended. I think it can also increase your enjoyment. So if it's a par 4 and it doesn't matter what the distance is and you're getting a par 4 and you're an am, maybe that is going to help you enjoy the game more. I think on the pro side, it's kind of a different thing. Like you said, ball golf has their traditions around par 4s and 5s, and kind of a par 72 is their goal for a top level course, maybe a 71 or a 70 here and there. But I think even if you look at like the Masters recently, Patrick Reed finished 15 down, and it's not like he shot par every round. 15 down that's pretty significantly under par.
Yeah.
So, we could talk about that all day, I think. But to me, it really is two different conversations. It's the pro side and the am side. And I think it fulfills different purposes in both cases.
So for this conversation, I would like to talk the pro side. I'll agree with you. The am side does a good job setting. I think par should be set for the player that's playing it. So at Maple Hill, we have red, white, blue, and gold tees, which are set for 4 different skill levels, and par is set based on that skill level. For this conversation, I want to talk about the golds only.
Mm-hmm.
But I agree with you 100%. It sets an expectation for the AMs, and I think that's great. And I remember when I started playing and I finally reached within a few strokes of par, and I knew that I was progressing by that measure. So with that, Eric, let's give you you actually are directly impacted by par week in and week out. Obviously, the only thing that really counts is number of throws, but I'd love to hear your take on where par is in the program.
So just talking mainly, we'll talk Pro Tour events because obviously we're on Pro Tour talk. So for me, people talked about, Waco being like this course that was, a little bit soft on a couple of the par 4s on the open side of the course, but it to me felt like those holes were, par 4s as they should be in the traditional sense of golf, where it takes 2 shots to the green in most cases, and it is a drivable green, and you can get those eagles, but we didn't see a whole lot other than the tight wooden ones because of how short they are. Speaking of this weekend at Jonesboro, hole 16?
Yep.
Mind.
Yep.
And that hole, especially with the OBs that were added, I like the idea what you said about making it an island so that, we can't just throw it as far as we want across the water, pitch it down, hey, good birdie type of shot if you have a decent drive. You have to be aware of where you're going to land. But that hole, to me, still feels like a par 5. It's an easy par 5.
Okay.
And I think so what really happens in our sport is we have too many courses that are structured on par 3s because of size, because of everything, and they try to cram 18 holes in. So we end up with a lot of, everything's birdieable. And that hole itself, hole 16, could be stretched in a pause in a moving the tee pad back, or cutting the fairway to make OB left and right. And now we're talking that it is actually a legit par 5, where now as players we can't just unload and like, all right, I'm gonna try and throw it as far as I possibly can so I can throw it over the water. Now we're having to be like, all right, I need to play a good controlled shot, know where it's going to end up, and stuff like that. And that will bring us closer to par. So the course changes, like you mentioned on hole 5. That's one that comes to mind, where I was even talking about it. Let's push it 100 feet to the left, make the woods on the left all OB. And now it's a par 4, and you're having to play a good, accurate shot. You can still throw over the water to make an easy approach for a 3, but you're having to play an accurate shot so you don't end up too tight to the woods. And now you're having to throw around and trying to find ways to get up and down for a birdie, and that'll pull it actually probably closer. We'll probably still see a lot of the same 3s on the score, but at the same time, you're still bringing in the danger and the risk reward and stuff like that to the hole. So I think a lot of course changes will help us get closer to par, I think.
I think you touched on a really good part of this conversation, which is the fact that we've got courses that have been put in before technology changed. Hold on one second. If you guys want to chat real quick while this guy talks, you can go ahead.
Let's just make fun of Steve.
Yeah. No,
he said he was going to eat a pint of ice cream. I don't know what he's doing. But
he needs just to keep eating.
Yeah.
Come on, Steve. Eat. I think you talked about something good, that it's, as getting into the sport for AMs, I think it's really good for them to have that idea of how many throws. And when we talk about the pro side of the game, I think, finding ways to really challenge golfers, I think a lot more, and with the course changes, and we end up in places where players are able to shoot 30, 40 down on is because the course was designed in 1990 and the discs have changed. So a course like Jonesboro is futuristic, and it has the potential to only get better. And that's the beauty of it. Brad, we're in the right direction of the overall growth of the sport. And, a place, Maple Hill is the same way. Green Mountain is the same way. They're in places where they only want to make the sport better and do the right things to improve their courses to challenge not only amateurs, but, and most importantly, the top pros.
So are you guys, I apologize, Matt. But so the library guy, I'm in the library and they close at 9. So we've got about 15 minutes left. But have you guys heard of a guy named Lo Bibby who came up with the concept of close range par? Or you familiar with close range par? Basically what he says is, for a gold level player, if you can get your drive within 100 to 120 feet, or if you would expect someone to do that, a gold level player, then that's what the green should be in disc golf. And then if you can get within 100 to 120 feet on your drive, then it should be a par 3. So, for example, if an average MPO player, we would expect them to throw maybe 480, maybe 450 feet. Does that seem like a fair drive distance?
450 across the entire field, yes.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm not worried about the Simons, and I'm not worried about the Joe Malas. We want the average guy. So 450, so a hole that's 550 to 570 feet, depending on features, should be a par 3 using that logic. Do you guys agree with that logic in general? Matt?
I mean, doing it based on distance is a little tough, just because it varies so much, depending on.
Let's presume wide open. Just that's the only factor in this.
Sure. If we're just talking wide open, then I think that's an okay way to do it. I do think that, it's just hard for me to do it solely based on distance, because disc golf is really not about throwing in an open field. If we did it just based on distance, then I think that you'd have to have more qualifiers in there. Like, if you're Simon and Eagle, then it's a par 3. And if you're everybody else, it's a par 4.
No, I'm going to disagree strongly on that. You have to say, if you're a gold level player, there's an expectation of how you should be able to throw. And
but so to me, I think the part that I have more of a problem with is you said 100 to 120 feet. But to me, how many people are out there making 100 to 120 foot shots for birdie? To me, I think that the par should be really your drive plus, you need to be able to get into circle 2 or whatever, size we come up with and have a chance at birdie. So to me, you should be able to have a chance at birdie if you're a good player. And I think that if it's, 570, 580 feet, that's probably okay if it's wide open. But if it's wooded at all, that's going to get a little bit more interesting there.
If it's wooded, you're gonna close that number down. Of course, I agree with that. But in my opinion, if most of the people can get within, or if you would expect the average gold level player to get within 100, let's say 100 feet. So a 550 foot hole, he can throw to 450, and then he's got a 100-foot upshot. That's absolutely not a par 4, and it should be a par 3. You could argue it's a bad distance.
Yeah, that's what I'd argue.
but that's what happens on the edge cases, and that's where you have to figure out what's going on here. And when you get to 600 feet, you make that a par 4. That's somewhere in between there is the shift over. How does that sound to you, Eric?
I like that. I think the one thing that kind of gets hyped on is the courses have to adapt to the level of play that we're dealing with, and you've been surrounding yourself on the pro tour with people who are willing to work with you and can work with you to make those changes happen, so the sport continues to move in the right direction. Not like other tournaments and stuff like that who are stuck in their ways. They're cemented in the ground. They feel as rooted as they can be, and their course is going to be the same. And people are going to come and shoot 40, 50 down on the weekend, and they're just like, that's how it's always been. We need we have to be able to say, all right, the sport needs to move in a better direction. But also on the counter side of that, what's wrong with us being 30 under par, 40 under par? If that's how, if that is, it's away from traditional golf, and it is more of the standard for disc golf.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and
go ahead, Matt.
I was gonna add, so obviously we borrow par from ball golf. Mm-hmm. And, you know, one thing to me that is a big difference, like the biggest difference between disc golf and ball golf, is that putting in disc golf is significantly easier. I don't think anybody would argue any other way. It's a lot easier to make a putt from 60 feet in disc golf than from, 20 feet in ball golf, probably. So to me, par there, people that are shooting really well, they're probably just on and they're just making their putts, or more than likely, they're absolutely just pinning every single shot. And they've got, a 2 or 3 footer for a tap in to make their birdie or their par. And in disc golf, it's very different, where there's people that are just on fire and they're hitting 60 footers all day. And par is it's never going to be something. It's never going to be as precise of a science as ball golf is, just because of the physics of the whole game, I think. So to me, the argument is just sort of flawed to begin with, because we're basing it on a sport that is fundamentally different in a very important way, which is putting.
I think you nailed it right there, Matt. Because when in ball golf, when you have a par 4, you're hitting your driver, then you're hitting your 5 or 6 iron onto the green, and then you have a 20-foot putt. You have a chance at birdie, but you're probably not going to get it. And if you can go up and down in 2, then you're basically a pro. In disc golf, you on a par 4, you're throwing your driver, you're throwing your fairway shot, and you're probably landing inside circle 1, at least inside circle 2 if you're a pro, and you basically have a 50-50 shot at birdie. And that's if it's a short par 4, you want to get a birdie. If it's a long par 4, you might not expect to get a birdie. And to Eric's point, what's wrong with 30 down, 40 down? I'd say 30 down for a 3-round tournament, 40 down for a 4-round tournament. What's wrong with that? In my opinion, there's nothing wrong with that, and that should probably be our expectation. When you look at, if we're going to design disc golf courses like ball golf courses, a ball golf course has, par 5s, 3s, and then long 4s and long 4s and short 4s. Because of how our putting is versus their putting, I would shift all of those down to short par 3s and long par 3s, and then short par 4s and long par 4s. And maybe a couple of par 5s. So I think our pars are going to be looking at 63 to 66. And we're going to be looking at shooting 8 to 10 down to win.
Yeah.
And that's
I like that concept. But you have to be willing to continue to work with the courses and the tournament directors and stuff like that to helping keep that standard there. Right. And like you said, you've been finding difficulty with men's and women's tees because, at this weekend, there was a tee that was both bad in both directions.
Yeah.
Too easy, and it was a little too hard for the women, and we both played them. So continuing to work with the numbers, UDisc being involved and with different tournament directors and course designers and stuff like that to continue to allow us to have courses that work, that are legit. And with us continuing to play these events and having all these different players from different backgrounds with different ratings, you're allowing for the right amount of data to be there for us to then say, all right, these types of par 3s are good, these types of par 3s are not so good, and continue on down the list as far as par 5s and 4s go. Yeah. So it's awesome. So I would continue in the direction that you're going, because it's obviously on the right track.
So I think, thank you very much, Eric. And I'm going to say, I just think using the numbers that, interestingly enough, that Matt's providing to us, I think we'll end up getting to the point where -9, -27 over a 3-round tournament, -36 for a 4-round tournament, those are going to be the expected numbers that people will win with. And I did a quick analysis of the last 3 years of Pro Tour events, and with the exception of Idlewild, which was 13 down, which was kind of an outlier because that course, maybe some of the pars were a little too tough. But the number,
I don't know.
no, I think some of those pars were too tough personally. I think there were 3 holes, and that would change the scores by 9, which would put it at 22 down. Still the hardest course by par, but any which way. But with the exception of that, every winning score was between 26 and 42. And that's 3 and 4 round tournaments. So there's some variance there. But in general, people are scoring 7 to 11 down to win tournaments. And that seems like about where we want to be.
I like it. I like it a lot.
So with that, Eric, I'm going to wish you a bon adieu.
Arrivederci. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing some stories and for admitting that you shouldn't have thrown that shot.
And thank you so much, guys. You guys keep doing awesome things, and we'll see you in San Francisco. Will we see you there?
Absolutely. And a GBO.
Yeah, can't wait.
Fantastic. Good night.
Okay, guys.
Bye, guys.
So, Matt, with that, we've just got a few minutes, and I wanted to just say thank you, basically. You have helped me to see a dream come true. I remember our dinner at the Cake Factory. Was that 2015?
Yes, 2015. Yeah.
That's amazing. And I remember, and it was interesting because we didn't know each other at all.
No.
And I was ready to put a lot of stuff on your plate and say, this is my vision. And you said, yeah, that's our vision too.
Yep.
You're a year or two ahead of us. But you guys put your foot on the metal. Now, was Josh a part of you at that point?
Yep. Yeah, he'd been around for a little bit at that point.
Okay. So you guys just put your foot down to the floor and said, we're going to try to make this work. And you worked out a lot of bugs and you got the thing, you just where it is. And I'm sure you notice, but every single podcast references the UDisc stats. And how fun is that?
Well, I can definitely say I've started to listen to a lot more podcasts lately than I ever have. It's been really cool. Definitely. Josh is a huge part of this too. He's not here, but he did the majority of the website. Almost all of that was him. And coming up with a lot of how everything works. He's just kind of like the architect behind everything. But beyond that, it's been super cool to see just so many people kind of embrace it. And it was just something that we really needed. And I think it happened at the right time. Like you said, our meeting was serendipitous how the whole thing happened. And we had a dinner at the Cheesecake Factory and just kind of talked it over. And I think it turned into something pretty cool that, we're not going to stop making better as time goes on.
Absolutely. Yeah, very, very, very exciting where we were and where we are and where we're going. And I don't know if it was my first or second podcast ever, but I did ask people to go to UDisc and hit the schedule button.
Nice.
Because one thing that you guys have done is you have brought. Now, obviously, the first couple of years you were just working with the Pro Tour, and everybody saw how good of a thing you had created. And now you're working with the National Tour, and you're working with majors, and you're working with, I see the Remax Open even over in Europe, the first European event to use UDisc. And whether you guys know it or not, you're causing the premier events in disc golf to all work in one. We're all talking the same language now, and it's really fun.
Yeah. And there you go. Mute yourself. It's been really, really crazy to see it kind of go this quickly. We were always hoping to get to this point, and I think we've kind of reached some of our goals that we set at the beginning. And really, I think we're just doing something that the sport needs, and we're doing it because we really enjoy disc golf. And I think in the end, everybody hopefully can learn a little bit about the sport, and we can have discussions like this based on facts, not just based on emotions. You can look at the numbers and see what a par should be, or look at the numbers and see maybe if the tee should be shorter or longer, or, something like that. So hope that we can continue to innovate and hopefully keep this thing going. There's a lot of, it was fun to watch the Masters last weekend too, and kind of see how they do things and compare it to how we do things, and just be like, all right, there's still a lot of room for improvement. It just takes money and time and data and people, and hopefully disc golf will get to that point eventually where we can have, the real live, everything, here's exactly where it landed and here's where they're standing right now, and that kind of stuff eventually.
Well, for our budget and what we're doing, I think we're doing the 80-20 principle. We're getting 80% of the way there with 20% of the budget, or 2% of the budget. And and I thank you guys for being a part of it and working with me to make disc golf look and feel much more real.
Awesome. We're very happy to do it, and we couldn't ask for a better person to work with. So
I appreciate that. Thank you very much, Matt, and have a great night.
Thank you. Talk to you later.
So that is Pro Tour Talk with Steve Dodge, the April 11th edition. Hope you guys had a good night, and we will see you next time.